falling in love and all that goes with it is wonderful.
But unfortunately, love doesn't always have a fairy tale ending. These days, divorce is becoming more and more common.
Anthony, we're celebrating Valentine's Day. Why must you bring up divorce?
Well, my buddy and Edmonton presenter Wade Brown told me about his days volunteering at a legal information call center. He noticed a sharp spike in people calling for info about divorce right around Valentine's Day.
Well, that's heartbreaking. But I suppose there's never a good time to get divorced. Let me guess, Wade is bringing us another edition of Blind Justice.
That's right. He offered to chat with a family law lawyer in Edmonton to learn about the divorce process in Canada, what happens during and after a divorce, as well as to provide some comfort and support for those going through this difficult process.
Blind Justice with Wade Brown. Divorce. Sam Rollans is a practicing family law lawyer in Edmonton. Today, he discusses with us the ins and outs of marriage and divorce law.
Marriage is exactly what you'd expect it to. It's a promise to basically live together as an economic and a family unit. And most recently, the biggest change was the shift from marriage between a man and a woman and same-sex marriage. Generally speaking, you have to be separated from the person you're married to for at least a year. And there are other grounds that people know about, mental and physical cruelty, adultery, and those are still law. You can still get divorced for that, but they're typically harder to prove. And so people don't usually use those to get divorced. It's almost always a one-year separation.
Can you talk a little bit about how property is divided when a couple is getting a divorce and also when a long-term relationship is breaking up?
Across Canada, property is determined by provincial law. So depending on which province you live in, property division can be a little bit different. So if you come into a marriage with, I don't know, a lot of savings or a house, for most people that means you can leave the relationship with those savings or that house, providing they still exist. For people who are married, the general rule across the country is you get 50%. You walk away with half of what you own. And there are some exceptions, and people should talk to a lawyer if they want to know what those are, but that's generally the case. For unmarried people, it is much more dependent on where you live. So for places like Ontario and Alberta, if you haven't been earning most of the income or you haven't owned most of the property in the relationship, you're going to walk away with less than 50%. In some other places like BC, Newfoundland, and the Territories, you're treated like a married person would be after a set number of years. That changes depending on the province, but in those cases you get 50%.
How do the courts deal with custody disputes?
The best interest of the child is the only test applied across Canada. That means that it is really dependent on the facts a couple brings to the table. And if a couple can agree to what those interests are, the court's never going to second guess them, so you can agree with a spouse that, this is how you should parent a child. The court's never going to step on that. If you have to go to court, it's unpredictable, and there's no big rule that the court's going to apply.
Even though divorce can take a long time and cost a lot of money, it's great to hear that everybody is treated so fairly and that the interests of the children come first.
Oh, definitely. And I was also really impressed by Sam's words of support to people who are conflicted about ending a marriage. There's a lot of support out there for those who need it.
Lawyers can get a pretty bad rap, but many of them have huge hearts and are truly working for the public good.